In your bag, you used to take a change of clothing and a towel, because when you came out, you were wet, soaking.
It's a mishmash of light, sound, colour, energy. It's a fantasy world.
There was a spiritual dimension of ecstasy, and a lot of people would dance themselves into ecstasy. It was like I was stepping into a whole new world. The rave scene began in Melbourne, I would say, for me, was probably 89.
The whole 80s club culture was cocaine, it was dressing up, it was hard to get into the clubs.
There was a lot of racism going on between Australians and ethnics. There was drive-by bashings that were going on.
I went through the punk scene, which was really quite a bitchy, nasty scene, and people got into heroin and all this kind of stuff, and it was really horrible.
A dry time, like dry in terms of creativity, and the music industry was very commercialised and entrenched.
You know, most clubs you'd line up for ages, and if you weren't dressed right or whatever, you wouldn't get in. And when you got in, it was expensive and people drinking, and which led to boorish behaviour.
The clubs were there to make money, obviously. They needed an income stream, and alcohol was their income stream. People who were involved in acid and ecstasy and not drinking, and just drinking water, and all they'd do is take a bottle and go and fill them up in the bathrooms continuously. One of the things I remember clubs doing was taking all the handles off the taps in all the bathrooms. So this scene did not fit inside the club so well.
We arrived in late 89. Well, it wasn't that great in the nightclub, so to speak. There wasn't any warehouse parties whatsoever.
There wasn't a hint of rave going on. There was little clubs and I'd go there.
From those sort of end of nights where the DJs were allowed to suddenly play house or something a bit different to the norm, there were only the hardcore people left, we thought we have to have our own playground, we have to have our own club.
A lot of people were looking outside for something that was amazing, and it was happening overseas and it was brilliant, but they weren't looking at themselves to realise that it was here. Biology would have been the first rave.
I had known Mark James and Richard and Heidi and got asked to do decor for biology, and so started there.
The experience for me was mind-blowing, it really was.
We took acid and the whole thing was incredible. It was like the birth of a scene.
All inhibitions, insecurities on the dance floor were gone. It was a freedom that I hadn't experienced in clubs.
What makes the party different from a nightclub is the pure size of it, of like having a massive dance floor, you know, and just everyone dancing. That's the spectacle of it.
You go into a nightclub and there's a little dance floor and massive big drinking areas, whereas we had a little drinking area and massive big dance floors. Our customers didn't like alcohol. They were there purely for the music and to dance.
But, you know, the people who were there didn't look anything like they were at a rave. You know, they were probably straight out of the Melbourne sort of alternative rock scene.
I got to put all these amazing banners up, get them in front of an audience, which is really hard to do. How do you do large-scale works and get them in front of an audience, on, that sort of canvas. It was an achievement. We were actually doing stuff.
Blew the roof off Melbourne because they hadn't seen anything like it. Melbourne to us was like a candy box. Someone had opened the lids and left it off, and there it was for us to explore.
When this hit, it was liberating, it really was.
It really united a lot of people, and that kind of exploded into the rave scene.
When it's fresh, when it's new, all of a sudden you get the focus. Now once you've got the focus, then you keep the ball rolling. And that's what biology did. It launched us onto the Melbourne scene.
All of the misfits that kind of were around came together, and that was the joining point. We'd usually just have our own little think tank, so we'd be sitting around going, oh, what are we going to do for our next party?
It was very early days. We'd find a warehouse. It wasn't paid for. It was illegally broken into, in a sense. Sound system was set up. There'd be a smoke machine, a couple of basic lights, and just the music.
It was an incredibly just a go environment because we were always under budget, somewhat understaffed, but people were passionate about what we were doing, and we all would chip in.
We never made any money. I used to have to bunk the trains to get back to Williamstown because I didn't have any money, and everyone's going, fantastic party, that was just unbelievable. God dear.
Ecstasy appeared and LSD started reappearing, so that combined with the music really created the culture.
People were really open, people were really inviting. Also people from different walks of life.
There's no separation. You could be an airline pilot or you could clean the toilets. When you were on the floor and you were dancing together, no one gave a monkey's who you were.
Over time it was like, bees to honey really. A lot of people got attracted to these parties.
The raves started getting bigger and bigger, and there were more on, and they were crazy and insane, they were huge.
From 89 to 90, and then 90 to 91, I guess in 2 very short years, you had a very mature, very complex scene happening.
This scene was about love. They called it the second summer of love.
Let's do something crazy tonight. Just get insane. I want to be crazy. I want to be nuts. I want some fun. God damn it, my doctor says don't have any fun. You can't have fun. No. You're allowed to have a good time. You can't get crazy. See, I have to be in control. And I like being in control.
To dance, you had to be comfortable. So sports gear, I guess, was where it started.
Hoodies and tracksuit pants like I'm wearing now.
English soccer goalie tops were pretty cool back then.
Let's take a look at them. This first one's a real doozy, isn't it?
$25.
Is it really?
Yeah.
As psychedelic drugs and things like that became hand in hand with the scene, the clothes got brighter and the colours got brighter.
Everyone went fluoro, and everyone would light up like a Christmas tree. I used to love it.
You recognise the raver. He's a raver. Look at them.
Stood out like a sore thumb.
It was like a lot of responsibility of the kids in the 80s. We're the experiment of the 60s and 70s, justice, human rights, feminism, we had to make it all happen. So there was kind of I believe that there was a regression into, look, I don't want this responsibility, I just want to be a kid.
I know you want this stuff.
You can get pistols.
Real ones.
Ooh, right.
After the initial wave of the party scene, the dressing up faded away a lot. You just went jeans and t-shirt.
these scenes, you know, they might say, no, techno started here and techno started there, but really it was an emergent sort of phenomenon that was happening in lots of different places at the same time. You know, I look at the sort of German industrial music scene, the punk scene that influenced it, in the acid house scene in the UK, or the house music scene where it sprung out of Detroit.
Later there was so-called IDM or intelligent dance music, and then trance became really big, and psychedelic trance. Then drum and bass came along. I got really into that for a while.
A lot of people would bang on about how it wasn't music. Electronic music was all just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that was it. It was kind of dead. It was void of any substance, which was, you know, far from the truth.
The rhythms are incredibly complex, and as a drummer, I know I put triplets and 5/8 and 7 and all sorts of odd time signatures within dance music and gotten away with it. Coming from a post-punk synth background, this is what I'd been waiting for all my life.
I mean, we did a party once in South Melbourne, and it must have been a very overcast night, like low cloud, and I think the police were running around in Footscray looking for it. Yeah, you know, it was gone up, bang, hit the atmosphere, came down again, and they were all running around literally in the car, trying to find where we were.
The digital revolution was celebrated within the dance party scene immensely.
When I was studying electronic music, synthesizers and that sort of thing were incredibly expensive. As gear got cheaper, it became more affordable, and the advent of the computer really changed the music dramatically.
The technology for me represented a sort of a utopian view in some ways. It was like the 60s being revived. We didn't want to hide anything. Everything had to be visible out in the open. We would, you know, our technology would take the boxes, we would take the cases off them so you could see the technology inside.
Psy-Harmonics had an event called Psychic Harmony. Julian Assange helped set up the computers for networking to the internet so people could text. And it was funny because I never realised it was him, and then a friend of mine on Facebook said, "Hey, isn't it funny what happened to Prof?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "That's Julian Assange, man."
One of the things that turned me on about that space was the electronic artwork. That, for me, was my drug.
My name is Adam Jaffers. I work under the name of Techno Mandala. My work, I'd say, is both experimental and spiritual imaging.
I was working as a private investigator, a surveillance officer. And I started taking photographs at music video clips. It was through the Max Q Monday Night by Satellite film clip that I rediscovered the Amiga computer, and the capabilities of this computer just blew my mind. I started making computer imagery.
I'd say my work is very cyberdelic, hardcore, not as clean and polished as most mainstream work.
I always loved walking into a dance party environment and seeing the lights and the visuals wrap itself around the sound. You know, it was almost like the sounds were voices speaking. You know, you have these sort of sounds of wow, wow, wow. It was almost like the person who was creating the sound, tweaking knobs, was trying to actually say something.
Not every techno crew did, you know, art installations for their parties. They might have just had a sound system and lights, but that was our whole goal of, you know, making an environment that people could walk into without having drugs and go, oh my God, this is just amazing. This is just off the hook.
The
good thing about the scene was that I could paint massively large-scale paintings. So when people got a hold of these big tubs of fluoro paint at a good price, you just go crazy with it and it looks, you know, amazing. You couldn't do too much shading. What's the point? The place is dark. You've got fluoro lights, you've got colour. You just need to have these very strong images.
Tatjana and I, at that stage, were going out. She was painting, I was writing music. When the guys who were running the clubs and doing the parties saw what she was doing, they just ran with it.
So the acid smurf was a concept actually, which was actually Brad. The acid smurf is really Brad.
I didn't know that till I started to talk to her again.
Long legs, a little bit of a pot belly, nose, you know. And once I had the smurf, I could do anything I want with it. So I can make him into an Andy Warhol image, I can make him into a rapper. Brad used to take me and say, this guy wants to buy this one. And I thought that was a really strange experience for me that young, that someone really likes my work, they want to buy it. It never occurred to me that maybe they were all right.
Well, the parties were largely advertised via flyers left in record stores and cafes.
And it was all word of mouth, and it went round fast.
The venue would never be told to people. You had to ring up this number and you'd find out where the party is, and that way the council couldn't get onto you beforehand and shut you down.
You know, you get the sexy girls like call me, well, it was on their lines, you know, like 0055, phone after 6. One day we was doing it and it didn't click over at 6 o'clock.
I remember that clearly of him, like, you know, crying out in the backyard, and it's just like, oh man, our party's not going to get anyone.
I was physically sick with worry. Spewed up $50,000, $60,000 sitting in the warehouse and no one knew where it was.
And then finally the number comes back on and it's just like, oh, good, right, people can actually, you know, maybe find it.
I cried with happiness then. So I spewed with fear and cried with happiness before the party even started. I used to have nice sort of brown hair then. 15 years of running techno parties, that's what it's done. I went pure white.
Every Picture Tells a Story was our main party of what we'd put our biggest energies into.
A series of parties that occurred for a long period of time. It was consistent and sustained.
Instead of just one party theme, every picture might have 5 different little mini themes going on in each different room.
Global Village, a fantastic experience. Wow, you know? I think it lasted for four or 5 years. It was the only place at the time in the world where it was a legal venue.
Unlike the illegal dance parties where you had to sort of be in and out, you know, within a space of hours, you could really take time to make this space come alive.
There was a Saab and it was put on chains and that was crashing up into the roof at, you know, 30 foot in the air or something. And yes, that's one thing you wouldn't get away with nowadays.
We bent the rules, just bend them.
Yeah, don't break them.
It didn't break any.
Welcome.
Cyberthon, something Adam Jaffers did.
He decides that we're going to have this party, but it's going to be live broadcast.
Stay tuned, there's lots and lots coming up.
Welcome.
In total, there was something like 300 people over 5 years that were involved in guerrilla-style TV broadcasts.
An all-night video jam of different psychedelic visuals.
We were trying to now take what was happening in rave culture and pump that out through the air in a slightly more traditional television format. And they were marathon events that went on for 30 odd hours at times, non-stop.
This is my magical lollipop. So that will take you through until 8 AM.
It's like a dance party that's gone on all weekend, but there are cameras everywhere and computers and wires, and it was weird.
Cocaine speaking.
TVU was Television Unlimited. They were a gang of TV boffins.
This is TVU. And if you'd like to interact with us here in the studio, fax us artwork, ideas, neuro responses, Amiga, BBS 376 7375 if you'd like to interact via modem.
At the time, public TV had test broadcasts 28 days a year, and that was distributed amongst 4 different public TV groups. So TVU was just one of those groups.
I have in the studio with me tonight, Heidi. Let's just talk about the rave and what we can expect.
The DJ who's coming in from London, he's playing Every Picture Tells a Story. The lighting, the visuals by everybody who contributes is just unsurpassable.
What we essentially did was hijack public TV. It wasn't illegal, although what we were broadcasting was sampling people's artwork, repurposing it, remixing it, mishmashing it together and kind of regurgitating it out the other end. So in that sense, we were breaking all copyright laws. We didn't care about any of that sort of stuff. A lot of people in public TV turned a blind eye to what we were doing. We were one of the only groups that were allowed to broadcast our shows without actually showing the programming staff what we were actually going to broadcast. Things were not scripted or programmed. A mixture of people dancing, people moving around. We interviewed DJs. We were doing everything that television did do. News reporting of the dance party kind, really.
What sort of music do you make?
Country and western. Techno.
And he just ran it all through this warehouse and spewed it out live into Melbourne. Just like any kid's rebellious scene, it was portrayed badly in the media.
It was portrayed as a criminal drug scene with our kids having their souls sold to the devil.
There's a big thing about the drugs. I mean, obviously the drugs has got to be mentioned, and I dare say there was a few drugs being taken, but no more than anywhere else in any other part of the society whatsoever.
It was the kind of environment where you could overdose on hugs. That was sort of the biggest risk, I reckon, at these parties.
It was hard for people to understand. It was hard for, I guess, parents to understand. We got away with it because it was non-violent.
I don't remember girls complaining about being sleazed on, violent drug or alcohol-fueled violence occurring. I don't actually remember ever seeing a fight.
We had a few times where parents actually came up to us and said, look, my daughter's in here. Can we just have a look to see what's going on? And by all means, come in. I think it was about an hour later, they're still there. I had to ask them to leave.
And paid.
Walking into the Westgate was an amazing experience.
The Westgate parties were in Altona and it was in a sporting complex.
As you walked in, it was across two or three tennis courts.
We'd rock in on a Friday night after the people had finished playing tennis, lay down a floor, put backdrops up, bring in scissor lifts, we could have a whole crew, bring in trucks, put generators outside.
Can you tell me how things are going?
Yeah, it's going on fine.
Yeah.
Just perfect.
By that stage, there was a little bit more of a budget. You could have massive sound systems running where the parties wouldn't get shut down.
At the moment we're setting up a concert system which consists of 48 boxes, 24 subs and 24 mid-highs, and we're going to be pumping about around 80,000 watts.
Have you ever had anything like this here before?
No. The most I've had in here is 650 people. They were church groups and it was quite good. They behaved themselves.
Have you seen a rave before, a dance party?
I've done security at discos. Yeah, I've seen this sort of stuff before. They enjoy themselves and, you know, they seem to enjoy themselves.
You'd be just totally immersed in colour, decoration, massive, like 30, 40 mirror balls. There wouldn't be a spot that wasn't moving.
Given the fact that it was a sports centre, it had all those recreational things that a sports centre would have. It felt like I was at an amusement park. People were, you know, frolicking through the water and people were rock climbing. It was like a place where kids could play. And really, it was a very childlike environment.
The butterfly hanging from the roof, that's Fairy Moon. She nearly killed herself doing that, but she didn't kind of expect to be up in the air so long. And when she was coming down, she thought, oh yeah, you beauty, I'm going to be able to breathe again. And then she'd go back up for another minute. Like, no!
Out in the car park, you had people with their own little sound system, you know, just stomping out in the car parks.
You'd be left with about 2,000 people at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that was the time.
Watching the sunrise.
That was the time. You know, sunrise, starting to see the people with their coloured, the different shapes, the shows. Everyone's beaming.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, as the owner of the complex, I have been very happy with what they've done here.
Jim, the owner, had always dreamt about putting on these big parties, and so we happened to just rock up and go, oh, I want to do some parties. Oh yeah, great.
And I want to congratulate him once again for the excellent work that they've done. And I'm looking forward to do more business with the people.
Yes, so the whole thing was just a feeling of a massive big family.
Did you have a good night?
I had a beautiful night. Did you?
Yeah, I had a lovely night.
And the sun's up, man.
Could you think of a better place to be?
We had the best times at these parties.
Yeah, we lived, breathed it every day. Yeah, it was just like what we did.
It was really unique and special that young people were creating their own thing for themselves.
Just being there with your friends, you know, like kids in a clubhouse. And yeah, it was escapism.
That was my passion, I suppose, for 10 years. I did the parties because I actually loved doing it and I liked bringing people together.
That was why it lasted so long, because there was a great sense of unity. You could dance with anybody and it didn't kind of really matter.
You cannot go anywhere without seeing the influence of the dance party scene in the 90s, where its effects are. It's everywhere.
It was our life, it is our life, it's still our life. It's still in it, you know? I'll still go partying, I'll be the last one on the dance floor tonight.